Hello and welcome to our Doors Open Day event 2020. My name is Sam Walker and I will be showcasing some of the Trust's local art collection currently held in store. The museum has been collecting local art for over 50 years, and the collection not only showcases the work of local artists, it depicts people, places and events in St Andrews, providing a visual account of the town's social history. The art rack behind me shows our framed art collection, and the first artist that we'll look at is Annabelle Kidston. Born in 1896, Annabelle was originally from Helensburgh but moved to St Andrews in 1936. Having studied at the Glasgow School of Art and the Slade School of Art in London, Annabelle Kidston was an accomplished etcher, engraver, illustrator and painter. In a portfolio of her work held at the museum, she depicts her childhood home in this woodcut titled Redcliffe, Helensburgh. When Annabelle moved to St Andrews, she took an active part in town life. She co-founded the St Andrews Preservation Trust in 1937 and the St Andrews Art Committee in the 1940s. Considering Annabelle's important role with the Trust, we actively collect her work, and last month we acquired this oil painting at auction, titled Still Life with Bowl of Fruit and Green Glass. Other oil paintings include mid-20th century portraits of local people, like this painting titled John Black the Slater, perhaps someone that Annabelle met through her work with the Trust to preserve historic buildings. The Kidston collection contains many other portraits of local people, including this sketch of St Andrews fisherman Peter Waters. On display in the museum, you can view two portraits, one of Byre Theatre founder A.B. Patterson and another of the well-known local actress Kathy Ritchie. Kidston also sketched students, and one of the finest examples in our collection is this chalk sketch titled Sir Francis Ibiam, who is thought to be the first black student at the University of St Andrews. Born in Nigeria, Ibiam studied medicine and graduated in 1934. He returned to Nigeria to work as a medical missionary, establishing hospitals and nursing schools, and he also became the first governor of the eastern region of Nigeria. As well as portraits, Annabelle was inspired by her environment and often painted places in St Andrews and throughout the East Nook. Some places have a direct link with the Preservation Trust, such as Loudon's Close, painted here by Annabelle prior to its restoration by the Trust in the 1940s. The fantastic painting Students in Market Street is unmistakably St Andrews, with two students in their iconic red gowns trudging through the snow past the white Melville fountain. A portfolio of Annabelle's work shows the range of her work, from newspaper illustrations such as those for the Bulletin, to engravings of iconic St Andrews architecture such as the Westport, and her own home in the town at 21 Market Street. Annabelle shared her skills as a wood engraver during the Second World War when she held art classes for Polish soldiers stationed in the town. Annabelle held these art classes with her fellow artists and friends Alison and Winifred Mackenzie. The museum holds some examples of the work produced from these classes. The soldiers often created work that represented their life in the town, such as this woodcut titled Billiards, showing three soldiers enjoying some free time, and At the Post, perhaps showing some of the more wearisome moments of their time stationed in the town. Like Annabelle, Winifred and Alison, also known as the Mackenzie sisters, were incomers to St Andrews. They arrived early into the Second World War and quickly became involved in town life. Both sisters were accomplished artists in their own right, and we have some examples of their work in our collection. A more recent acquisition, currently held in our store, is titled An Evening in France by Winifred, possibly inspired by her travels across Europe with her sister Alison. Possibly my favourite item in our art collection is by Alison Mackenzie, and it is this colourful British Railways poster of St Andrews, of which she was commissioned to produce in 1954. Starting at the castle sands in the foreground, Alison captures the iconic coast of St Andrews right along to depict the Step Rock Pool, Old Course and the West Sands. Other examples of Alison and Winifred's work is available to view in the museum. As well as representing the work of mid-20th century local artists, the art collection depicts many buildings around St Andrews that no longer exist. This watercolour by Nicole Bonfiren, for example, shows the Tontine Baths in St Andrews, depicting a time when St Andrews was emerging as a popular holiday resort. In 1810, the baths were built on the scores to the immediate west of the castle ruins. The baths were established as part of a life annuity scheme known as a tontine. This scheme was wound up in 1818, but the baths continued to operate into the 20th century. They were used by St Leonard's School prior to the opening of their own indoor pool in 1967, before being demolished to make way for Ladies' Lake, a clifftop residential property. Bonfiren also depicts the former toll booth in St Andrews in this watercolour, which we believe to be painted in around 1920, some 60 years after the toll booth was demolished. Bonfiren was likely painting this scene from memory, having been born in South Street in St Andrews in 1854.
We hold other work by Bonfiren in our store, which is not surprising as he reportedly produced over 10,000 miniature pictures of his hometown.
He may not have been a trained artist, but his sketches provide a fascinating glimpse into life in St Andrews during the late 19th and early 20th century. Continuing on the theme of lost buildings, this unsigned watercolour dated 1920 shows Priory House, a magnificent mansion house that once stood in the grounds of the cathedral. Priory House was built by Lieutenant General David Campbell of Williamston in 1809. Built on the site of the original priory founded by the Augustinians in 1144, the original building fell into disrepair after the Reformation in the 16th century. In 1809, Campbell purchased the land from the government and erected private buildings including Priory Lodge, stables and a laundry. Upon his death in 1828, the house remained in the family before being acquired by John Patrick Crichton Stewart, 3rd Marquess of Bute, in 1893. Bute resided in the priory when visiting St Andrews until his death in 1900. Priory House was later used as emergency housing for evacuees during the Second World War. After the war, St Andrews Town Council used it for housing until it was eventually demolished in 1957.
Our museum at 12 North Street was once home to generations of fisherfolk up until the 1920s, so our art collection also depicts this way of life.
This colourful watercolour, signed by the artist Palmer in 1884, shows daily life at the outside stair of 21 North Street, just across from our museum. Palmer depicts the important work of women in the fishing community. One is looking after the home by beating a rug at the top of the stair, and another is sitting outside the home baiting fishing lines. This lively oil painting, titled Fishing Boats at Sea, while undated and unsigned, highlights the perilous conditions of the fisherman's occupation while at sea. In contrast, this watercolour by Swan depicts a more idyllic view, showing a fishing boat in the harbour with the cathedral ruins in the background. St Andrews Harbour inspired many local artists, as shown here in this watercolour by the 20th century local artist Ada Hill Walker. Ada was born in St Andrews in 1879 and trained at the Glasgow School of Art. She returned to St Andrews to set up a studio and work as a teacher, and we know that she regularly painted with friends at 12 North Street, now the Trust's museum. We hold many paintings by Ada in our collection, including this watercolour of the interior of 12 North Street, showing what is now the ground floor of the museum looking west, and also this church interior titled The Chimes. Other examples of her work are available to view on the Art UK website, as well as locally in town at the New Picture House, which contains murals that she was commissioned to complete for the cinema in the 1930s.
Thanks for watching our video tour of our collections in store. If you'd like to see more of our collections, please visit www.standrewspreservationtrust.com. Thank you.